It finally happened. After years of silence, sneaky jabs, and industry-level chess moves, the feud between Ja Rule and 50 Cent just exploded into a whole new dimension. And this time, it's not about music, charts, or even old beef. It's about a secret tape. A tape that 50 Cent allegedly leaked. A tape connected to Diddy and Ja Rule is not taking it quietly. Because the moment that footage hit the internet, the entire industry froze. People didn't know whether to laugh, panic, or start connecting dots about Diddy's ongoing scandals. But one thing was clear: Ja Rule snapped. Not the playful back and forth we've seen over the years, not the memes, not the trolling. This time, it was personal. This time, he said 50 crossed a line he can't ever uncross. And what Ja said next, it sent shockwaves through hip-hop, because when a man who's been humiliated, mocked, and dragged for nearly 2 decades finally gets pushed too far, the explosion is different. This isn't just another chapter in the Ja Rule versus 50 Cent saga. This might be the moment everything changes for Ja, for 50, and for Diddy. And trust me, you're not ready for what comes next. For more than 2 decades, few rivalries in hip-hop have burned as long, as bitter, and as stubbornly as the one between Ja Rule and 50 Cent. What began as a street misunderstanding spiraled into a chart-shaking war, a cultural shift, and a generational divide in the sound of rap music. To many fans, it looked like the beef had cooled off, not resolved, but tucked away like an old wound people stopped touching. But in the industry, everyone knew better. History doesn't disappear. It waits, silent, patient, until something happens to shake the dust off. And that moment came out of nowhere. In the late hours of a Tuesday night, the kind of night where the internet is half asleep but ready to wake up for drama, a mysterious clip appeared on a minor social media page. It was blurry, low quality, and labeled only with the initials, FO. No context, no explanation, no backstory. Just a cryptic, grainy recording attached to a caption that read, "Y'all should have never crossed him." Within minutes, the page vanished, deleted without a trace. But this is the internet, nothing dies once it's been seen. Someone screen recorded it. Another person reposted it. And within an hour, the clip spread like wildfire. People didn't know what they were looking at, but they knew it was tied to something big, something messy, something that smelled like the kind of industry secret people whisper about in hallways but never say out loud. And then the rumors began pouring in. Some said the clip was connected to Diddy. Others swore it was connected to a deal gone bad years ago. Some even said the initials, FO, didn't stand for anything obvious, that it was code for something only insiders understood. But the loudest speculation, the one that started trending, was that 50 Cent himself had a hand in putting that clip out. After all, if there was anyone who had the means, the motive, and the historical appetite for chaos, it was him. And that's when Ja Rule found out. He wasn't scrolling. He wasn't looking for trouble. He wasn't hunting for the next punchline or the next drama-filled headline. He was busy working on a show, dealing with business, living life far removed from the energy of early 2000s beef. But someone in his circle sent the clip directly to him. No context, just a message that said, "Look what's going around. They saying 50 did this." At first, Ja brushed it off. Over the years, he had learned that not every headline needed his reaction. Not every rumor deserved his energy. But then he actually watched the clip, and something in his expression changed. Not fear, not confusion, not shock. It was recognition. He knew exactly what he was looking at. He knew when it was recorded. He knew who was involved, and he knew who had access to it. And that's when everything inside him snapped. Because to Ja Rule, this wasn't funny. This wasn't trolling. This wasn't some petty Instagram jab or a recycled meme. This was personal. This was a violation. This was crossing a boundary he thought even his worst enemy wouldn't cross. He immediately called his team. He wanted answers. He wanted to know who posted it first. He wanted timestamps, connections, IP traces, anything that could tell him how the clip resurfaced after all these years. And the more he dug, the angrier he became. Because the timing didn't feel random. The timing felt intentional. It felt like someone wanted to embarrass him. Someone wanted to stir up old wounds. Someone wanted to connect him to a narrative involving Diddy, at a time when Diddy's name was already plastered across headlines with allegations, lawsuits, and industry whispers. And who would benefit from that kind of chaos? To Ja, the answer was obvious. He didn't go to social media immediately. He didn't rant. He didn't post a meme. He didn't do what people expected him to do. Instead, he sat with the anger, the kind that starts quiet, low, deep in the chest. The kind that feels like old history rising up again, refusing to die. The clip kept spreading. More people reacted. More blogs covered it. More YouTube channels broke it down, even without knowing what it truly represented. And in the middle of that online storm, someone sent Ja a screenshot, one that sent him over the edge. It was a comment from 50 Cent, not confirming anything, not denying anything, not explaining anything, just laughing emojis. A row of them, cold, mocking, calculated. That was the moment the switch flipped. Ja Rule finally decided he wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. Not this level of disrespect. Not this invasion into a chapter of his life that was never meant for public entertainment. So he went live. No flashy lighting. No dramatic background. No stylistic presentation. Just Ja, raw, unfiltered, and visibly furious. He didn't shout at first. He didn't curse. He didn't throw accusations. He spoke slowly, the kind of slow that comes from someone trying to control a storm inside their chest. He said he knew where the clip came from. He said someone dug it up intentionally. He said the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. And then he said the words that instantly went viral. If 50 put that out, he crossed the line of no return. The comments section exploded. Fans didn't know whether he was making a threat, promising revenge, or simply stating the end of all pretenses of peace. But Ja wasn't finished. He hinted that he knew things he had kept quiet about for years, things he never wanted to use, things that could shake up the very image 50 Cent built his career upon. And as he said those things, his tone wasn't performative. It wasn't meant for shock value. It felt like someone who truly, deeply felt wronged, and viewers could see it. This wasn't entertainment to him. This wasn't a meme. This wasn't a comeback attempt. This was pain resurfacing. This was betrayal. This was history repeating itself in the ugliest way. And the live ended with one chilling sentence. The sentence that instantly set the stage for an explosion no one was ready for. "'Cause if he wants war again, I promise you, this time it won't look nothing like last time." And that is exactly where, "'cause if he wants war again, I promise you, this time it won't look nothing like last time." The live ended there. The screen went black. But the internet? It erupted instantly. Within minutes, Ja Rule's words were clipped, reposted, slowed down, remixed, captioned, and re-uploaded across every corner of social media. People argued in the comments, going back and forth over what he meant. Was it a threat? A warning? A promise of retaliation? A declaration that the era of silence was over? To some, it sounded like Ja was finally fed up with being the punchline of hip-hop beef history. To others, it felt like he had been pushed into a corner he never wanted to revisit. But there was one thing everyone agreed on. This wasn't regular Ja Rule versus 50 Cent drama. This felt different. Heavier, deeper. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the industry was buzzing. Executives, managers, old affiliates, producers, they were all on the phone with each other, asking the same thing. What was on that clip? And why did Ja react like that? Because everyone who had been around during the early 2000s knew one truth. The beef between these two wasn't just music. It wasn't just chart hits, radio shade, and subliminal bars. It involved real people, real consequences, real history, and real secrets. So when Ja hinted that he knew things, the people who understood their past felt a chill. But while Ja's live spread across the internet like wildfire, 50 Cent stayed quiet, completely quiet. No jokes, no memes, no smart comments, nothing. And that silence only made the situation stranger. Because 50 was never quiet. Not when it came to Ja Rule. Not when there was an opportunity to clown, troll, or stir the pot. So the absence of his voice made people suspicious. Was he watching? Was he planning? Was he ignoring it? Or was he waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Hours passed. Then a day. Then two. And the silence became its own headline. Meanwhile, Ja Rule wasn't done. The next morning, he posted a message. No caption. No filter. No jokes. Just a dark background with one line. Enough is enough. Fans started speculating that Ja was preparing to release something of his own, something he had held onto for a long time. Interviews resurfaced where Ja mentioned industry politics, label manipulation, and how certain narratives were built to destroy his career. Clips of him talking about the early days of Murder Incorporated went viral again. Even old interviews with 50 Cent popped up, showing how he built his legacy on destroying his enemies. The internet was connecting dots that didn't even exist, but that didn't matter. Because tension doesn't need facts. It needs timing, emotion, and history. And this feud had all three. But the real twist came when an anonymous insider reached out to a mid-sized blog, one known for dropping semi-credible industry tea. They claimed something shocking. Ja had been sitting on information for years, information that could flip narratives, expose conversations, and shift the way fans viewed the origins of their rivalry. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The rumor alone ignited a frenzy. Comment sections filled with theories. Twitter X turned it into a full-blown investigation. YouTubers went live, treating it like breaking news. And somewhere in the midst of this chaos, another revelation surfaced. Ja wasn't just angry about the clip, he was angry about who it connected him to Diddy. Because at that moment, Diddy was the most controversial figure in the entertainment industry. Old lawsuits resurfacing, new allegations emerging, federal probes being rumored, celebrity affiliates quietly distancing themselves. The last thing Ja wanted was to be dragged into that storm. And that's exactly how he viewed the clip, as a way to tie him into a narrative he had nothing to do with. To link his name to someone who was already being burned under the weight of scandal. To make him guilty by association. And in his eyes, there was only one man who would use that tactic. Only one man who would play chess while making it look like a joke. Only one man who would leak something, sit back, and laugh, while the world tore itself apart. 50 Cent. So Ja began making calls, not public ones, but private ones. Old friends, old producers, old label assistants. Anyone who might have a piece of the larger puzzle. He wanted to know exactly how the clip resurfaced. Who kept it? Who passed it? Who archived it? And slowly, the truth started forming like a shadow behind a curtain, not fully visible, but visible enough to understand the shape. Someone from the past had resurfaced. Someone with access to old material. Someone with resentment. Someone willing to sell things to the highest bidder. And that terrified Ja more than the clip itself. Because this wasn't just about embarrassment. This wasn't about jokes. This wasn't about being trolled publicly again. This was about control. Someone had taken a piece of his history, a piece he never wanted to see daylight, and weaponized it. That was the one thing Ja couldn't tolerate. And the more he pieced together the timeline, the more he believed 50 Cent wasn't just laughing at the situation. He was orchestrating it. So Ja called his PR team. He called his manager. He called the people responsible for protecting his image and his legacy. And he told them something that surprised everyone. I'm not waiting for them to spin this. I'm telling my story first. This wasn't like the old days, when artists depended solely on radio interviews or magazine covers. This was the era of long-form content, personal platforms, and unfiltered truth. Artists didn't need permission anymore. They could speak directly to millions. So Ja decided to do exactly that. He scheduled a sit-down interview with a major platform, one known for giving artists the space to talk without being cut off or mocked. And as soon as the announcement went live, reactions exploded across the internet. Fans knew one thing. If Ja Rule was willing to speak publicly, really speak, then something deeper was happening. And the anticipation became unbearable. Would he expose 50? Would he reveal secrets from early 2000s hip-hop? Would he talk about Diddy? Would he address the clip directly? Would he finally tell the truth behind everything? The day of the interview arrived. And even before Ja sat down in the studio chair, people were watching the live stream like it was a championship fight. Ja entered the room calm, steady, composed, but his eyes carried the weight of someone who had held in a story for far too long. The host welcomed him, eased him in, and then asked the question everyone wanted to hear. Ja, what's really going on? There was a long pause, a deep breath, a moment of silence that made the whole internet hold its breath. And then Ja spoke. He said the clip wasn't new, it was something from years ago. He said someone kept it hidden, waiting for the right moment. He said he knew exactly who benefited from its release. And then he said something that instantly went viral. This wasn't about exposing me. This was about trying to bury me. Again. His voice didn't shake. It didn't crack. It was steady, like someone who had finally reached the emotional breaking point, where the truth becomes easier to say than silence. But then he leaned forward, lowered his tone, and said, "And if 50 really thinks he can play this game again, he forgot how much I know." The internet went insane. The host looked stunned. Comment sections exploded. And just as Ja was about to reveal more, the host leaned in, eyes wide, sensing that the moment was bigger than anything the interview had expected. The room felt heavy, like the air itself tightened. The chat section on the live stream froze, flooded with comments that flew by too fast to read. Millions of people leaned closer to their screens, waiting for what came next. Ja took another breath. His eyes weren't angry anymore, they were tired. Tired of carrying a story for decades. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being portrayed as the villain in a war he felt was never one-sided. And for the first time in years, he didn't laugh, didn't deflect, didn't hide behind performance. He spoke from a place deeper than ego. This clip, this moment, this thing everybody's talking about, it wasn't just a random leak. It was a message. Someone wanted me to feel small again. Someone wanted to remind me of a time when the industry was stacked against me. The host nodded slowly. And you think that someone is 50? Ja didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. Finally, Ja replied, "Look, I'm not here to play detective. I'm not pointing fingers without proof. But when a man laughs at something he knows could damage you, that tells you everything." That line hit the internet like an explosion. Clips immediately started circulating. People made edits, memes, analysis videos, reaction videos. But Ja wasn't finished. This wasn't a petty rant. This was a release he'd avoided for years. He continued. People forget what I survived. They forget what was happening behind the scenes. Labels, radio politics, industry alliances, all of it played a part. And I kept my mouth shut. Because I thought the music would speak for itself. I thought talent would win. But real life doesn't always work like that. The host interjected gently. So what's different now? Ja looked straight into the camera. What's different is that I'm not scared to tell my truth anymore. Those words sent a shiver through the room. Even the production crew standing behind the lights froze. Because everyone could tell this wasn't performance. This was catharsis. Ja started breaking down parts of his past he had never detailed publicly. He talked about how certain people had positioned themselves to sabotage him during his prime. How opportunities were cut. How narratives were built. How one feud became an entire machinery designed to erase him from the culture. He didn't name names. He didn't need to. Anyone who lived through that era knew exactly what he was talking about. But then he shifted to the topic everyone was waiting for: Diddy. That clip, the one they're spreading. I'm not going to get into details about what was happening in that room. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't scandalous. But it was personal. It was from a time when people trusted each other. And now it's being used to paint me into someone else's controversy. The host nodded, careful to avoid legal traps. So you're saying the clip puts you in a situation you were never part of? Exactly, Ja said. And whoever leaked it knew that. They wanted my name next to someone else's downfall. He didn't accuse 50 directly, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. And let me say this, Ja added, leaning closer to the mic. When you've been quiet for 20 years, when you've been peaceful, when you've been minding your own business, and somebody still comes for you, that tells you something. It tells you they're scared of you healing, scared of you getting respect again, scared of you rewriting the story. That line drove the internet crazy, because for years, the narrative was simple. 50 Cent won the war, Ja Rule lost. End of story. But now, Ja was hinting that the story wasn't that simple. That maybe there were layers the world never saw. That maybe everything people believed about that beef wasn't the full truth. The host recognized the emotional weight in the room and decided to ask the question that everyone was thinking. Ja, after everything you've said, after everything that's happened, is there still a part of you that wants peace with 50? Or is it too late? Ja Rule looked down for a moment. He clasped his hands together, thinking deeply. When he finally raised his head, there was no anger in his face, just clarity. I don't hate that man, Ja said calmly. I really don't. But you can't make peace with someone who enjoys your pain. You can't bury a war when the other person keeps digging it up. And if he did what people think he did, then yeah. It's too late. The comments exploded once again. But the interview wasn't over, because the host then asked, what do you want people to understand about you today? After all these years, after all the jokes, the memes, the headlines. Ja inhaled, then spoke slowly like every word was being pulled out of a scar he'd carried for half his life. I want people to understand that I'm human. I made mistakes, sure. But I also made history. I loved this culture. I contributed to it. And I survived things that would have broken other artists. I don't want sympathy. I want understanding, respect, a fair telling of the story. He paused, swallowing hard. And I want that man whoever leaked that clip to know that I'm not afraid anymore. You can't embarrass someone who's already lived through their worst moments. There it was. A line so powerful, so raw, that even the host didn't know what to say next. And yet, the moment wasn't over. Because right as Ja finished speaking, his phone, which he had placed face down on the table, began vibrating non-stop. The host glanced at it, then back at Ja, noticing the tension suddenly forming in his jaw. Ja smirked slightly, a humorless smile, and said, "Looks like somebody's watching." Chat went ballistic. Was it 50? Was it someone from the past? Was it someone involved with the clip? No one knew. But the timing was too perfect to ignore. Ja didn't pick up the phone. He didn't address it. He just let it buzz, and buzz, and buzz. And after a long moment of silence, he said something that closed the chapter in a way no one expected. This time, "I'm not playing defense. I'm not hiding. I'm not running from my past. If this leak was meant to shake me, congratulations. It shook me awake. You want war? You want chaos? You want old wounds reopened? Fine. But understand this." He leaned forward, his voice lowered into a tone that felt like a warning sent across an entire culture. "This time, I tell my story, and I tell all of it." The studio went silent. The host didn't speak. The chat froze. Because everyone understood. A new chapter in one of hip-hop's longest rivalries had just begun, not the loud, wild, early 2000s version, but a calmer, colder, more calculated war, built on truth, exposure, and history. Ja Rule stood up, shook the host's hand, and walked out of the studio with the quiet confidence of a man who had finally unburdened himself. Behind him, the phone kept ringing, and the internet held its breath, because now everyone wanted to know, if Ja Rule was ready to tell everything, what would 50 Cent do next? If you've made it this far, then you already know this story is far from over. Because what just unfolded isn't the end of a rivalry. It's the beginning of a new chapter. And trust me, the next moves in this game are going to shake hip-hop in ways nobody is prepared for. So here's what you need to do right now if you want to stay ahead of the curve. Hit that like button so this story reaches every fan who needs to hear the truth behind this escalating war. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the moment Ja, or 50, makes their next move, whether it's a post, a diss, a leak, an interview, or a response, I'm covering it instantly. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single update, not one. This situation is changing fast, and the next 48 hours could flip everything upside down. And most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on? Who crossed the line? Who's telling the truth and who's hiding it? Your voice matters here. This is your place. Your community. Your front row seat to the next chapter in hip-hop history. Stay locked in. It's only getting started.